Hello and welcome to this IBM Cloud Foundation Skills Series video, and this video is going to be a lab on security groups. Okay, so here I am in my IBM Cloud account, so I'm at cloud.ibm.com. As you see, I'm in my dashboard. So to actually see security groups, I need to click the menu here, go down to Classic Infrastructure, and then once I'm in Classic Infrastructure, if I go to Security, and then Network Security, Security Groups is there, so I just click Security Groups. And this screen shows me the security groups that are currently active on my account. So I've not created any security groups myself just yet. So these security groups are the 5 which IBM automatically creates within all of your all accounts. So you've got the allow all, which allows all ingress traffic. You've got allow HTTP, which allows ingress on port 80, etc., etc. So here you can obviously see the name of the security group, and there's a bit of a description. Here the attached interfaces. So if you remember, you can attach up to 100 interfaces to each security group. So this keeps a count for you. Here you've then got a little list of actions. So if you click on the 3 dots, you can manage the instances that are in the security groups. You can edit the details, you can duplicate them, delete them. You can view some audit logs as well if you want to. So let's go and have a look at one of these. So let's go and look at the allow HTTP. And just when this screen loads, which is fairly quick, you can see these are actually the rules of the allow HTTP security group. So there's 2 rules here at the moment, so they're both inbound rules. One's on IPv4, one's on IPv6. Both got a protocol of TCP there. The port that these are active on is port 80. And then here you can see the source destination. Now what this actually is what's called a CIDR block. So this is a block of IP addresses effectively. And when you see a CIDR block that is 0.0.0.0/0, that means it's effectively active for the whole internet. So it's any IP address this is actually active for. And you may well see that when you want to be more restrictive, when a rule needs to actually apply to a set of IP addresses, then you'll see octets or numbers in here. So again, there's some actions here. So you can either edit the rule or you can delete the rule. So let's go and have a look at, if I click edit. So to edit the rule, you can use the drop down. So at the moment this is an inbound rule. If I wanted to make it an outbound rule, I could change that there. I'm going to leave this as it is, but just to give you an idea, there's the drop downs, so you can change various things, change the port range. So for instance, this if you actually wanted to run your HTTP servers on a different port, so not port 80. Sometimes people want to run them on port 8080 or 8888. I've seen them run on, so you can change the ports here. Now this one here, as I mentioned, at the moment it's working on a CIDR block. If you actually wanted to make it run on a security group, so if for instance you had a bunch of servers in a different security group and you wanted to allow that security group access to this particular security group, then you could change this option here. And as I said, with the source, you can change the IP address range that you want to use here. So let's cancel that. Okay, similarly, if I want to create a rule, then I click the Create Rule button here, and then I can set the rule details here. So, for instance, if I wanted to set another inbound rule to allow TCP on, let's say, on port 8080, because we mentioned that earlier. So if I also wanted websites to connect on port 8080, then I could do that. So what I could do is restrict that to a particular block. So let's say we've got 10.1.0.0, and let's say 24. So that's a very particular CIDR block. So I could attach that. So if I click OK, so the rule's created successfully, and obviously this rule is now active on this particular security group. I don't have to do anything more to make it active. So in summary, this security group now allows HTTP, so TCP ingress traffic on port 80, but also now allows it on port 8080. So that's quickly adding that rule. I don't really want that rule there, so I can also show you. I'm going to delete the rule. So it gives you a little warning there saying, deleting this rule affects all devices protected by the security group. So there's a bit of a warning. So I'm happy that I'm going to delete that. So I'll just click delete rule, and there we go. It's now deleted. Okay, so to quickly show you, well, I'll show you here that at the moment there's no instances actually assigned. So it's got no virtual servers are actually assigned to this group at the moment. So I do actually have a virtual server already created. So I've got one called Security Group Server 1, and as you can see here, I'm actually connected to that at the moment. So if I type in host name, it will give me the full host name. Now, if I so I'm actually logged into it at the moment. If I exit it, so let me just exit this and return to my own computer. So I'm now connected to my own computer. So let me show you just logging back into that again. So it's all very standard. I just put in SSH root and then the IP address and then put in the password. And in a couple of moments, so there we go. It's now connected. So if I type in host name again, there we go. So if I now let's apply this this instance to this security group. So if you remember from the last video, what happens is that when you apply a security group, it effectively blocks all access other than to the rules that you've actually allowed. So if I were to apply this security group to a server, what I would expect is that I would only be able to connect to this server by port 80. Well, I can attach from anywhere, but only on port 80 via TCP. So effectively, the only thing that I can do is connect using HTTP traffic. So let's just assign the instance. So to do that, I just click on Assign Instances. I can then edit this list, and there's the server, as you see, Security Group Server 01. I'm going to put this on the public interface, so you can see its IP address there, and save. And as you can see, that has now been attached successfully to the security group. So let's go back to my terminal. So as you can see, I've not been booted out, so I've still got my SSH session up and running. So as I mentioned in the last lecture, if you see suspect activity, so if you think, well, someone's logged into my server and they shouldn't be, then just putting in a security group which disallows SSH access won't actually kick them off the server, so you can't use it in that way. And as you can see, because I'm already attached, I'm still attached. I've not been kicked out. So let's just exit, and let's see if you remember the next thing. So let's try and SSH back in. So let's put my password back in again. So as you can see, I can still log into this server, even though I'm in the even though it's now in the security group. And again, if you remember, the first time you actually add a security group to a network interface, it doesn't actually become active until you've actually restarted the network interface. So what I'm going to do is actually reboot this server, so I can show you that. So if I go back to devices and device list, so there's my server there. So what I'm actually going to do is reboot this server. So I'm just going to do, let's do a hard reboot. So that'll take a couple of minutes. So when I come back, I will show you that. But just bear in mind that I'm logged in at the moment. So what should happen is, because I'm doing a hard reboot, I'll be kicked out of here. And then when we come back, let's see if I can actually log back into the server. Okay, so it looks like the server's now back up. That probably took all of a minute. So let's try and log back into it. So again, let's do an SSH to that server, and this time we should see that because it's actually in that security group, we're going to be waiting a little while. So it's obviously taking a little while. If I scroll down, let's just show you this screen again. So this is the device details screen. And you can see down here there's a security group. There's a security group box here, and that actually tells me which security groups it's actually in as well. So let's just go back to that terminal. So just to prove that it's not connecting. So let's just cancel my access to that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to assign another security group. So if I go modify here, let's actually allow SSH onto this group. So I'm going to save that. So it's on the public network interface. So if I click OK there, just to OK that. So again, that's success, and I've actually attached that to the public interface. Now what we'll probably need to find is that it probably still won't work. So we go saying permission denied. Okay, so I still can't do that. So let's actually now reboot this server again. Let's restart it. There we go. So reboot. So let's do another hard reboot. And again, because I actually haven't restarted the network interface, the rule hasn't actually fallen into place, which is why I can't actually log in. So let's reboot, and I'll come back when the server's fully rebooted. Okay, so my server's now rebooted. You can see that these two security groups are actually linked to this server now. So let's see if we can actually log into it. So if I SSH back to there, pop in my password, and there you go. I'm now straight in. Let's just do a quick host name, and you can see that's the host name of my server, and it's all nicely up and running. Right, okay. So next, let's actually go and create a security group, shall we? So if we click security and network security and go to security groups, and so to create a group, what I'm going to do is click here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a name. So I'm going to call this, let's call this allow my admins access, and this is going to be so allow my my server admins access to my jump server. Okay, and if you don't really know what a jump server is, well, if you think that you don't want everybody and anybody to have access to, let's say, your application servers and your database servers, then quite often what you can do is create something called a jump server. So people need to have access to the jump server, and then from the jump server they can then log into the application servers and the database servers. So it's a way of restricting access to servers you want to keep a little bit more secure. So I'm going to so if you remember in the last video I mentioned that there was this box create group with default rule to allow outbound traffic. So if I were to take that off, there'd be no rules at all around outbound traffic. So I'd have to explicitly set outbound traffic as well. I'm going to keep this one on. So what this basically means is that it will allow all outbound traffic from this security group. So let's go and create the group. There we go. So there's my allow admins access. So I'm going to click on there, and let's have a look and see what rules are there. So you can see that there's that about outbound rule, and it's any protocol and any port range. So if I wanted to, I could actually edit that rule if I wanted to. So I could make that. So I could, for instance, tie that down to TCP. I'm going to leave that as it is. I mean, obviously, if you want to make your security group more secure, then by all means take that away, or don't actually have that in there in the first place. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to create a new rule. So it's going to be an inbound rule. It's going to be on IP version 4. It's going to be a TCP. So this is going to be effectively an SSH rule. So I'm going to allow myself to SSH. I'm going to use a CIDR block. Now what I could do here is actually restrict the source. Because this is just an example, I'm going to allow it to everybody. But in real life, if you're doing this, what you would typically do is set this so that the source is the IP address range of your administrator. So it would be let's say your organisation's IP address range. So I'm going to leave this to open to the internet. As I say, I don't suggest that you do this in real life, but as this is just an example, that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to click OK, and again this is now actually been created. So this allow my admins access. So allow inbound on allowed outbound rather on any protocol and any port range. And allow inbound on 22, which is the SSH port. Again, to any source, but I'd recommend when you're doing this for real, you restrict that to the IP address range of your organisation. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to assign access to the server that I've already got. I'm going to show you how to actually assign access to a new server. So if I go back to let's go back to the catalog, and so I'm going to create a virtual server. So where are we? So here we go, virtual server. Now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to create this as a transient virtual server, just to show you again, you know, the provisioning of those, and it's to be honest, it's exactly the same as any other virtual server. So I'm going to have one of those. I'm going to call this my jump server. I'm going to give it a name. So my jump server. I'm going to create this in London as well. So let's create this in LUN 06. Just make sure that goes through there. There we go. Again, it's going to be a very basic server, so I'm just going to go for one by one. Running CentOS, and I'm not going to do anything else with it really. The only other thing I'm going to do whilst I'm thinking of it is actually attach a security group. So it says private security group. This is on the private network, and on the public network, this will be on the public. So on the public interface rather. So I'm going to click this one. So this is the allow my admins access group. So I'm going to put that in there. And that's all I really want to do at the moment. So I'm going to do the normal of I've read and agree. So this is going to cost me about 1 pence, 1 UK pence per hour. And I'm going to create that. So away it goes. Now don't forget, because this is a transient virtual machine, if IBM need the resources back at any moment, then they will terminate this for me, but this should be a pretty quick example, so we should be okay. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there. I'm going to allow this machine to provision. I'll see you again once the machine's up and running. Okay, so welcome back. So I've now got two servers. Second one as provisioned. So I've got the security group server, which is the one that I originally created, and I've now got my jump server. So if I quickly go into my jump server, you can see that it's been created, and it's been added to. Just taking a little while for this screen to come up now, and it's actually been added to the allow my admins access group. Okay, brilliant. So the other thing that I did whilst you were actually away was I created another security group. So let me just quickly show you that. And the security group that I created was called My App Servers. So this is a security group that I'm going to put all of my application servers into. And the rule that I've put in there is to allow inbound and outbound access to port 22, so it's SHX access. But the source destination, rather than being an IP address, it's actually another. It's actually the security group allow my admins access. So what this is going to do is, unless the source server is in this allow my admins access security group, it won't actually allow me to log in on port 22. So what I've done is I've actually put my security group server into that group. So let me show you this. So so here we've got my security group server. This is the one that I originally had. So let me try and log into this. And I'm doing this from my own PC, my own MacBook. So as you can see, I'm having no luck there. It's not allowing the connection. So let's try and log into my my jump server. So it's on this address, and let's pop in the password for that. So there you go. I'm allowed into my jump server. So if I do a host name, I can do that. So because this server is in the jump server security group, what I should be able to actually do is log into this security group server from my jump server. So let's give that a go, shall we? So we can see that that's just timed out. So let's try and do this instead. So let's do SHH root at, and then put in the IP address. So it's 158.176.91.66. So yes, I do want to connect up. So it's just adding that to the list of known hosts. And there we go. Now it's asking me for the password. So let me type that in. And there we go. I'm actually allowed to now attach to that to the security group server. Okay, so just to recap what happened there. So I've now got two servers. I've got one server which is a jump server, and I've put that into my allow my admins access security group, and that security group allows me to log into any server that's in the security group from the internet, effectively using SSH. I've then got a second server called security group server, which is now in my app server security group. And the only way that I can actually log into that server is to first of all be on a server which is in the allow my admins access security group. So effectively what I've created is a jump server, and I've been able to effectively create a jump server architecture using security groups. And that's it for this security groups lab. I hope you found it interesting, and we'll see you in the next video.